Christianity is not a blind faith. It is an eyewitness faith.
It's false.
There are people today in cults who will die because they believed a lie, but not when they have seen something, not when they have seen it and they have been forced to believe it because their own eyes consumed it, now even threatened at the risk of their lives for believing what they claim to believe. They couldn't recant because they saw it.
It's a made-up tale.
That the apostles, at least we don't have a record of the apostles, being told that if they recant their beliefs, they will be able to survive.
And if you say, well, that's kind of flimsy, I have to follow what a bunch of guys saw, well, tell me, how exactly, if you were God, might you do it? You can't think of a better way now, can you? Neither can I. A myth cannot develop when people who are able to refute it are still alive.
You're wrong.
Those 500 people didn't exist. They're lying.
It never happened. Not a chance.
A myth requires 2 or more generations to pass before it can take root.
Wrong.
The best scholarship, the Synoptic Gospels, were written within 30 years of Calvary.
No.
Matthew, perhaps early 50s. Mark, during the 50s, perhaps after Matthew. Luke was likely written AD 60 or 61. Luke in the 80s, maybe early 90s. These accounts were written down. They could have been mocked by people who are like, what do you mean? He didn't do any of these things you're talking about. Get out of here. The written eyewitness accounts are too detailed to be a myth.
No.
This is big. Put this in your little apologetics quiver and prepare to fire. This is a quote from a guy that we don't normally quote because too controversial, the C.S. Lewis fella. Nevertheless, first century fiction was not written in today's style of realistic narrative. No mistaking ancient myth with real history, because ancient fiction never wasted time on unnecessary details that didn't drive the plot or promote a character's development. That little detail, that details are not inside of myths.
It's false.
The Bible includes these details, John 21. But the other disciples came in a little boat, for they were not afar from the land, but about 100 yards away. The written eyewitness accounts, too self-debasing and counterproductive to be a myth. If they were trying to launch a false religion, the gospel writers, the epistle writers, with themselves as the founders,
wouldn't have put in all those words.
No, they would not. John didn't mention his own name. How's about Peter's courtyard failure? That's a little embarrassing. An appeal to a woman's testimony, which wasn't in those days admissible in court?
Wrong.
Excluding John, every apostle died not pretty, got their heads lopped off, crucified upside down. John himself was still boiled in a vat of oil.
But I'm going to show my cards for a minute. In all my research on this, hundreds of hours, I think of the 12 apostles, James and Paul, we have good historical confidence. 4 of them died as martyrs.
Jesus Christ is not like Santa Claus. He's not like some fictitious divine being that somebody's concocted who fires lightning bolts out of his finger.
A virgin gave birth to a guy who was God, but only part of God, but still completely God, but man also. Lived perfectly, so they killed him. They buried him, and then he came back to life, and then he floated back into heaven. And then one day, let me make sure I get all this right. One day, he's coming back on a white horse to get us. That's what you believe, partner? What's our response? Me too. Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. You want to come? You want to go with me? We're going to meet him in the air.